Good morning, folks. It's the 8th day of July, 2023. It's about 8:15 in the morning on a Saturday. Looking like it's going to... That's my weather report. I look out the window. It looks like it's going to be nice down here in Tampa, Florida. Hope you're having a nice weekend. A little bad news for you. The Biden administration, after at one point in time declaring that cluster munitions, the use of cluster munitions were a war crime, have decided to use said cluster munitions. Not personally. They're not going to launch them themselves. Well, maybe they will. They're special operations guys. But they're going to give them to our fucking puppets in Ukraine. You know, the Nazi ones. These guys. Hang on a second. I'll share them with you. Hang on. These guys, they're going to give cluster munitions to these guys to use against the Russians in Donbass, in Donetsk and Lugansk, in an effort, I guess, to hopefully stem the tide and to drag out the conflict even longer. Really, to be honest, they're probably using them in the hopes that it will infuriate the Russians and they will maybe even escalate the conflict even more into Ukraine, and then we can justify somehow sweeping in there to save the Nazis who were committing war crimes by using our cluster munitions. Are you with me so far? People are beside themselves. The left says, this is a bridge too far. How dare you do that? Here's Politico talking about top Dems breaking with Biden over using cluster bombs in Ukraine. The problem with cluster bombs is they have what's called a dud ratio. They are large bombs that explode over target and release bomblets. How cute is that? A bomblet. These are little bombs that then fly down, some using what's called flashettes. Very nasty fucking things. Flashettes are. If I remember correctly, don't quote me on this. For God's sake, don't quote me ever. But flashettes are like razor sharp mini darts, and they fly down. The cluster bombs fly down, and then they have an explosive charge in them, but their explosive charge goes off and they release these like razor sharp, like ninja throwing stars. They're just nasty fucking pieces of work. Now, it is a when you talk about, you have smart bombs, which aren't really that smart. We'll talk about that in a second. And you have dumb bombs. And then you have special bombs. And that's what we're talking about here. These are so unsmart, they are special. They just kill, maim, injure, anything in their path. And the problem is... we are sending ones that will be dropped from the air with somewhat accurate, again, we'll talk about that shit in a second, but with somewhat accurate fucking targeting. But then the others we're sending with the higher dud rate, I'll explain that in a second, there'd be artillery ones. That's right. You can fire an artillery shell big enough to house several of these bomblets. And they are just wildly firing these and will be wildly firing these things. Because, remember, the ones who were firing them, this guy will be firing them. Okay? This is despicable. This is absolutely 100% despicable. From the word go, what we did and are doing in Ukraine is despicable. That does not mean America is despicable. That means what we are specifically doing in Ukraine is despicable. It started with fucking Barack Obama. It was continued with everyone since, including Donald Trump. And now, of course, Joe Biden is overseeing this disgusting fucking behavior, more despicable behavior. It started with this. It started with us saddling up with the likes of him. There he is with John McCain. There he is with Victoria Nuland. So when I point out to you that we are going to be handing over cluster munitions, what Biden himself declared at one time to be the use of constituted a war crime, these are the kinds of fucking people we are handing them over to. When I say we are despicable for what we have been doing in Ukraine, I don't need to go any further than that. What gets me is the shock that, oh my God, Biden is doing this? But, oh my, who, what? Have you not been paying attention? Have you not been paying attention? Have you not been paying attention? In all likelihood, we created SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 and injected it in Ukrainian fucking soldiers who were on their way to compete at the Wuhan Games in October of 2019. Yes, cluster munitions are awful. So was SARS-CoV-2. And the subsequent fucking faux jabs. So, yeah, there's a lot to digest here. However, I wanted to talk to you. Here's top Dems stepping back saying, hey, no, wait, we can't do this. Wringing their hands after fucking voting every single time to keep the shit going in fucking Ukraine, agreeing with President Biden when they said, we're not going to fucking negotiate with the terrorists. We're not going to negotiate with Russia or the people in Donbass. No, hell no. We'll just keep fucking supporting and throwing money and bombing people and killing people. Now, these people, this is a bridge too far for them. Cluster munitions are fucking dangerous. Why are they dangerous? They're dangerous to civilians, for one thing. How? Because they don't all explode. Sometimes they lay there as a dud. They have what's called a dud rate. And I guess they proudly say at the Pentagon that these things, we'll be making sure they only have a dud rate of 2%. We're talking about tens of thousands of these munitions. So we're talking about 100,000 of the bomblets. So we're talking about, they say 2 to 3% is okay. Do the math on that. But in reality, the truth of the matter is, you're talking about a dud rate of these things with the ones that are dropped with precision, quote unquote, from the fucking air. You're talking about a dud rate between 20 and 23%. With the artillery shell ones, which are just scattered anywhere, shoot here and scatter, shoot there and scatter, shoot there and scatter, the dud rate of those is up to 35%. Now do the fucking math. What happens with these things is, after the fucking troops come through or the target comes through and they go up there and they bomb, and they leave, the duds don't leave. the Ukrainians and the Biden administration, they don't go over there and clean the fucking things up. And along comes a fucking child or some guy with his fucking sheep herd. And all of a sudden, he kicks this fucking thing lying on the ground, and it detonates. And it sends razor sharp flashets or whatever it uses. And it fucking tears them up. Kids playing soccer in the field. Boom! And it tears them the fuck up. That's why 120 nations have banned the fucking use of them. And they all say use of these are fucking war crimes. The use of these are fucking war crimes. We don't give a shit. Our glorious military leaders, same ones, by the way, if you ask me, who did that, they don't give a shit either. And God knows fucking Sleepy Joe, he just signs whatever paper they put in front of him now. You think he looks incoherent in front of the cameras? They get him. They give him coke. Where do you think the coke? People are like, it's Hunter Biden. Really? You think Hunter Biden's the only one of those motherfuckers doing fucking blow in the White House? Obama did blow in the White House. Bush did blow in the White House. Clinton did blow in the White House. You'd probably have to go back to George H.W. Bush to find someone who didn't do blow in the fucking, goddamn well, Trump probably didn't, but goddamn well, everybody since fucking George H.W. Bush. And that stick in the mud ain't gonna do no goddamn coke. That's what they keep him running on, man. That and fucking Adderall. But they don't give him that shit when he's signing papers. So what do you think he looks like when he's doing that? How aware of what he's signing is he then? Let me share something with you. You'll love this. You would think, at this point in time, leading into 2024, that the Republicans and fucking Fox would want to stick to the fucking... Here is Biden using a fucking war crime in support of a very unpopular conflict in order to keep it fucking going. And that's what they're saying. That's the whole thing. That's what they're saying. Well, the war is going great, but, they're starting to run out of weapons, and they got to find something. They got to use something. They're running out of fucking weapons, so they got to find something. That's one attempt to fucking spin. There's a better one. There's a fucking better one. And that's what I want to talk to you about now. You would think that Fox News would be all over this, using it as an opportunity to take a fucking big chunk out of Joe Biden and be on the right side of the fucking issue. Nope. They're on Biden's side. Surprise, surprise. The people that were all behind 9/11, the people that were all behind illegally invading fucking and occupying Afghanistan and Iraq, Iran-Contra. Oh my goodness. You mean it's not just the fucking Dems? Wake up. Let me show you something. You'll love this. You're going to love this. I think it's a good idea to use cluster munitions, says a guy by the name of Brett Velikovich, former Army Special Operations Intel officer. He's going to come out here and tell you one lie after another lie after another lie, saying, yes, it's controversial using these weapons of mass destruction. that indiscriminately kill civilians and children playing fucking soccer in a goddamn field, you piece of shit. But it's justified because the Russians are putting Jewish people on trains and putting them in concentration camps, and then they're killing puppies and raping babies, and won't someone think of the children? And then the Russians are using a big fucking shield to block out the sun. This is literally what this fucker is doing on Fox News. Just making up one lie after another lie after another lie. It's called MISO. What is MISO, Scott? Well, if you'd like to know, I will tell you. Military Information Support Operations. That's right, boys and girls. That individual that I just mentioned was Special Operations Intelligence. This is Special Operations Intelligence. What does it do? Basically, the idea here is, and this was 2010, this handbook was 2010, but basically the idea here is they are doing informational support for their warfare campaign. That's what Special Operations MISO does. The informational, cultural, social, moral, political, physical aspects of the operational environment are as critical to operational success as traditional orientation on adversary military capabilities has been in the past. What does that mean? Military information support operations play an important role in DoD communication efforts through the planned use of directed programs specifically designed to support U.S. government and Department of Defense activities and policies. Planned operations to convey selected information and indicators, lies, to foreign audiences in 2010, thanks to NDAA 2012. They can do them now here in the United States. To influence their emotions, motives, objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of foreign governments and local governments and organizations, groups, and individuals in a manner favorable to the originator's objective. Meaning, they lie to you. They will lie through their fucking teeth in order to support using weapons that are considered war crimes, not only by 120 nations in the world, but also by the Biden administration, in order to keep this thing going. Let me show you what this piece of shit had to say. I'll play a little bit of this for you. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Wide area to hit lots of targets at the very same time, but they can also kill civilians. The White House says it will send weapons less likely to leave unexploded duds on the ground to lower the risk, and adds the move does not bring the U.S. closer to a direct conflict with Russia. Watch.
Very clear from the very beginning of this conflict about two things that have been on.
This guy's a piece
of shit. The United States is not going to war with Russia in Ukraine. And second, the United States is not providing weapons to Ukraine to attack Russia. We do not encourage or enable attacks on Russian territory from Ukraine.
Let's bring in Brett Velikovich, former U.S. Army Special Operations Intelligence Officer and a Fox News contributor. Brett, great to have you on.
Here we go.
I want your thoughts on
Tell us some lies.
Clustering munitions, once deemed, war crime stuff, and now they're sending them to
war crime stuff.
Well, Trace, look, there's no, it's obviously that this is a very controversial weapon, but at the same time, I just returned from Ukraine, and the fact is that the Russian government has been using much more advanced weapons, much more dangerous weapons, and so this pales in comparison to what they're using against civilians out there. And frankly speaking, look, the battlefield right now, it is brutal and it is horrific. Most Americans have no idea the cruelty and devastation and damage that the Russian government has done to civilians who never even asked to be a part of this war. You have Russian soldiers, Wagner mercenaries that have already used chemical and gas attacks out there.
Really?
They're talking about now even trying to blow up Europe's largest nuclear power plant that they currently have control over.
They're defending the power plant, and it's not
rounds from rockets that literally fire over top of.
Oh my God, he's calling incendiary rounds from rockets that fire over top of civilians. That's called that's Willie Pete. That's white phosphorus munitions, and he's recalling an image. I bet they've used that fucking image. I bet these lying sleazebag pieces of shit have used that fucking image. The one where the Israelis, the IDF, fired that at a fucking and unleashed those over top of a UN school in Gaza during Operation Cast Lead, and they used them repeatedly. He's recalling that. He wants that image that you've seen. You've seen that fucking picture. He wants that in your fucking head. As if there had been any of that, we would have heard about it. He's just making up one lie after another lie after another lie, because that's what he is. He's a MISO, Special Operations Intel Officer.
These towns burst into hundreds of pieces and literally burns everything slowly underneath it without any.
He won't use the word white phosphorus on civilians. You know why? Because I guarantee you, if you Google it, what's the first thing you're going to see are his buddies in Israel using them on fucking Palestinian children. You won't find them being used by Russians in Ukraine. He's a fucking liar.
Discrepancies of whether or not it's civilians or soldiers. You've got this counteroffensive now also taking place, and they're finding
wait,
these
we're not done yet.
abandoned Russian torture chambers.
Torture chambers. Russia's torture. Project much? Hey, Velikovich, you project much? They have found those in Ukraine, but they weren't being run by Russians. They're being run by our Nazis, trying to punish people who aren't in support of their Nazi fucking government. They were also run by, that's right, special operations, U.S. military. Places like Abu Ghraib and black sites all around the fucking world. Russia do that? No. He did that. The people he works for does that.
War crimes took place, and where they, conducted, a number of different crimes against the civilians in these places like that right now. I mean, this is a nation state. This isn't ISIS. We're talking about country.
This is a nation state. It's okay for us to torture people we call ISIS. The vast majority of people who spent time who are still in fucking Gitmo can't be released because they were innocent when they were picked up. They had no fucking affiliation with any of the insurgent groups. It's just somebody wanted them out of the way. Somebody who had favorable status with the occupiers. We can't release them because they'll sue us as soon as they get released.
Countries that are governed by the laws of warfare, by Geneva Conventions. And so when I hear about these weapons being controversial, frankly, I see it as a necessity for the Ukrainian people to be able to defend civilians going forward. But
it's a necessity. That's what that sleazeball, that's what that vapid, hollow weasel of a human being. Do you know what else he did? We're talking about a man who is in support of using these things in spite of the fact that we all know they have a very high collateral damage rate. Would you like to know what else this man did back in the day when he was serving in the military? He was a drone pilot. Brett Velikovich is an American drone expert, U.S. Army intelligence and special operations soldier. he was known for drone strikes against terrorist leaders and advocating for the use of drones in the protection of African big game wildlife. He wants to use drones to fucking blow up fucking poachers, I guess. Anywhere he can get a government contract to fly his drones around. Went to Duke University. Got a master's of business administration. Notable work. Drone Warrior. This, by the way, his wiki page, he wrote. There's no question he wrote this. Absolutely none. You notice he won't give you any specifics on where he was and what time and what countries, where he was in country during what years, whether he was working as a special operations intelligence or whether he was doing drone strikes. But it's also through the language of this that you can tell he's talking about his upcoming movie based on his book. The story of his work in counterterrorism operations and drone strikes against ISIS, Al-Shabaab, and other terrorist groups is the subject of a forthcoming major motion picture developed by Paramount and Michael Bain. That's not a fucking wiki page. A forthcoming major motion picture. That's him. That's him. It's a major motion picture. It's a big thing. I'm a big dude. And now I'm on fucking Fox in support of Joe Biden. This is a contentious issue and could be very damaging to Mr. Biden. I don't know, in the near future. And here's Fox in full support. With this guy who, by the way, lied for a living in military information support operations. According to him, lied for a living in the military and is still lying now in support of their military operation, making up all this fucking bullshit. Yeah, it's bad, but what if we said Putin did worse stuff? Well, let's do that. That's the level of fucking brilliance of these fucking guys. That gets them a paycheck in the military. Not only did he do that, but he also did this. This is the Atlantic. Drone strikes are even worse than we fucking knew. This is New York Times. This is the New York fucking Times in full support of our military. Hidden Pentagon records reveal patterns of failure in deadly airstrikes. The promise was a war waged by all-seeing drones and precision bombs. Keep in mind, that's him. As I read this, that's him. This is the piece of shit right here who's being paid by Fox to support the use of a fucking war crime in Ukraine. To support Biden's use of a war crime in Ukraine. The promise was a war waged by all-seeing drones and precision bombs. The document showed flawed intelligence, faulty targeting, years of civilian death, and scant accountability. Shortly before 3 a.m. on July 19, 2016, Special Operations Forces bombed what they believed, supposedly, were 3 ISIS staging areas on the outskirts of Tokar, a riverside hamlet in northern Syria. They reported 85 fighters killed. In fact, they hit houses far from the front line, where farmers, their families, and other local people sought nighttime sanctuary from bombing and gunfire. More than 120 villagers were killed. Who says they thought ISIS was in there? Remember, we don't actually fucking fight ISIS. We don't kill ISIS. We made ISIS. We use ISIS. So who the fuck was he trying to kill? Or someone just fucking like him? In early 2017 in Iraq, an American warplane struck a dark-colored vehicle believed to be a car bomb, stopped at an intersection of Wadi Harjai neighborhood in West Mosul. Actually, the car had been not bearing a bomb, but a man named Majid Mohammed Ahmed, his wife, and their 2 children who were fleeing the fighting nearby. They and 3 other civilians were killed. In November of 2015, after observing a man dragging a, quote, unknown heavy object into an ISIS, quote, defensive fighting position, American forces like him, American forces struck a building in Ramadi, Iraq. A military review found that the object was actually a person of small stature, a child, who died in the strike. They were trying to save a kid's fucking life. And they droned him and killed him and the fucking child. None of these deadly failures resulted in the finding of wrongdoing. And they were all hidden in the Pentagon archives. So that people like him, who did this shit, could wear a nice fucking jacket and shirt in front of his green screen in his home and get paid $5,000-$6,000 for pushing lies on fucking Fox News viewers in support of Joe Biden's use of cluster munitions in Ukraine. Starting to make sense now? Oh, I'm not done yet. That's what this piece of shit did. I want to leave you with something. Just to really let it sink in. Though it's not as it's made out to be, it is an example of civilians getting torn the fuck up because people are so gung-ho, they don't take the time to understand at 30,000 fucking feet or 16,000 fucking feet what's going on around them or underneath them in a war zone. Let it sink in. This is what this guy did. This is what he did. He lied in support of fucking war. He made up lies to tell soldiers, to tell targeted populations, and to tell us back home. He lies as a weapon of war, like he's doing right here and now. But he also, if you understand what drone strikes are and how fucking bad they are, and even the ones they call fucking success when they're going after Al-Qaeda or ISIS, you have to remember, we are Al-Qaeda, we are ISIS. We're not going to blow up our own assets. So who were they really going after? And when it turns out they went after a fucking family, maybe you should ask, why that particular family? And just to let it sink in one more time.
What's the state line? Let me know when you get it. What you? Light them all up.
202 traffic, 260.
Come on, fire. Hey, Roger. Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Bushmaster 2-6. We need to move time now.
All right, we just engaged all 8 individuals. Now we got 2. We're still firing. Roger. Got him.
6 is a 2-6. We're moving. We got 13.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was it?
Bypass?
God damn it, Kyle. All right. I hit him.
Just to let that sink in for you. Fox News lying in support of fucking Joe Biden's use of weapons determined to be violations of the Geneva Convention and any decent interpretation of the rules by which you conduct warfare is despicable. It is as despicable as us getting pissed off because Yanukovych was going to take a loan out from somebody else and not the IMF, so he had to regime change him with fucking Nazis. It's as despicable as that. And if you think this is all just about, oh my God, it's just the left, the crazy left, there's your evidence. It's not. How this guy is actually allowed on any fucking... Now listen, people did... I knew for a while a drone pilot through the work that I do here. And was a decent guy. And I'm sure it's a very difficult fucking position. My son is gone and now it's going to pour down raining. I'm sure it's a very difficult fucking role to fill. And sometimes it is necessary in support of soldiers who are under fire. However, there's no such thing as smart bombs. And cluster munitions certainly aren't even close. They might as well just be lobbing mustard gas into fucking these areas and sarin gas. People think that this is all about the Russians in Donbass. It's not. Remember, they were bombing the shit out of the people of Donbass from 2014 up until 2022. They killed something like 13,000, bombing the shit out of them. They're still bombing them now. They're still bombing civilian infrastructure now. They're still bombing fucking marketplaces and fucking malls and schools now. This is still happening. And if you think for 1 second that lying piece of shit from Special Operations MISO and his history as a drone operator, if you think that motherfucker is telling you the truth about these things, or Biden for that matter, or anybody in the Pentagon for that matter, or for the people who did this shit for that fucking matter, if you think they're telling you the truth about the Russians being the fucking targets of these things, you are out of your goddamn mind. These are going to be targeting fucking civilians. Ukrainian civilians. Ukrainian civilians who happen to have a different belief about who should be running Ukraine. Ukrainians or the banksters from the World Economic Forum? And before the power goes off, I thank you for your time. Have a good Saturday. Bye-bye.